So guys, it looks like Apple is gonna give us a March event this year, and not only will there be a March event, it looks like we're finally getting some substantial upgrades to the iPad Pro. Let's ramble.
Hold up, place go wild when I pull up. They all on me like it once.
Hey, what is up guys? It's great to see you all again, and if you're new here, I'm Patrick and this is where I ramble about tech and other stuff. So yeah, it looks like this year we'll be seeing a March event from Apple, and I gotta say, I'm pretty excited about it. Not just because their March events tend to be packed with new products, but because some pretty credible sources have been giving us some juicy tidbits, indicating that this year we'll finally see a properly revamped iPad Pro. Now, the iPad Pro will always have a very special place in my heart because it was the iPad Pro that actually started this very YouTube channel. I was never particularly interested in iPads, but when Apple dropped the Magic Keyboard in 2020, I was super intrigued, I bought it, and I couldn't stop talking about how awesome it was. Now, when my family started to get tired of me talking about tech all the time, I figured why not start a YouTube channel and bother you guys with my nerdy ramblings. Anyway, throughout the years, the iPad Pro as well as other iPads have been a recurring theme on this channel, but I have to admit I slowly fell out of love with the iPad Pro, I guess, and that's because it's basically still the same iPad it was in 2018, just a little more powerful. Upgrades have been boring, incremental at best, and even when Apple Silicon was introduced to the iPad Pro lineup, it still felt the same. And sure, the new iPad Pros can do some things that the old ones can't, like running Pro apps like Logic Pro and Final Cut, but that's only interesting to a niche audience. And let's face it, we're tech heads, and we don't just want a new product to be new, we want them to feel new. And I haven't felt that with the iPad Pro for some years now. I bought the M2 iPad Pro to review it, and because I had high hopes for the Pro apps I just mentioned, but the apps were kind of meh. And if I'm being honest, my M2 iPad Pro right here, it's basically just a very expensive prop in my studio. The only iPad I actually use on a daily basis is the iPad mini. Right, fast forward to today, and I'm actually feeling a little excited again about the potential upgrades to this year's iPad Pro. So let's have a look at what we know, or what we think we know, because let's be honest, rumors are just rumors until they're not. Right, so the most obvious changes will be in the design. We hear the bezels will be smaller, which is a good thing. They shouldn't disappear entirely because it is an iPad and I want to be able to hold it without accidentally touching the screen. But the bezels on the 2023 iPad Pros are still pretty chunky, so there's definitely room to slim them down a bit. We also hear that MagSafe charging will finally be coming to the iPad Pro, which is great and opens up a ton of possibilities in terms of accessories like charging stands. And it might mean that we will see reverse charging coming to the iPad as well, which could be very useful given the relatively large battery on the iPad Pro. But the biggest redesign, and this is something and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been asking for so long, and that is the repositioning of the camera to landscape mode. Hallelujah. Currently, the camera sits on top of the iPad, if you will, but if you use the iPad in landscape mode, attached to the keyboard even for video calls, which is very likely, it just looks off. You get this weird looking side angle, which is not only unflattering, it also makes it very difficult for the person on the other side to connect with you. So much so that I'm actively avoiding using the iPad Pro for video calls, which is ironic because that's one of the things a portable machine like this should excel at. Moving the camera to landscape mode, where it belongs, will make video calls on the iPad Pro much more appealing. Why haven't we done this to begin with, you might ask? Well, in my opinion, it's probably because of the Gen 2 Apple Pencil, because it actually attaches to that side of the iPad where it connects and charges. You can have a charger and a magnet there, or you can have a camera there, but not both. So how will Apple fix this problem? Well, we've seen Apple switch the camera position on the iPad 10 last year, but that was easier since the iPad 10 is only compatible with the Gen 1 Apple Pencil, which doesn't charge magnetically. That does not work for the iPad Pro. I think the solution will be in the Magic Keyboard, which is also rumored to get a complete redesign. Mark Gurman, the godfather of Apple leaks, tells us that the new Magic Keyboard will feature a larger trackpad. It is also rumored that the bottom half will be made out of aluminum to resemble the MacBook Pro's keyboard more. Whether that means that the top half of the Magic Keyboard will still be made out of that dreadful smudgy material, I don't know, I hope not, but we'll have to see. The new Magic Keyboard might also feature a MagSafe spot on the back with pass-through charging charging so that the iPad can continue to be charged that way, even with the Magic Keyboard on. And all of that, of course, fits into Apple's wireless charging strategy. But those are not the most exciting changes we anticipate to the Magic Keyboard. There's a few registered patents that show what we might expect. Now, if you're an OG to the channel, you may have seen these before, and that's because they're not new. In fact, I've been sharing these patents on the channel since 2021, if you can believe it. And yet they've never made it to the real world. Well, what makes you think that they will this time, you might be wondering? Well, precisely because this whole repositioning of the camera thing. If this is happening, Apple will have to find another way to charge the Apple Pencil. Now, one of the patents I've been sharing shows a Magic Keyboard that has a slot for the Apple Pencil inside the hinge, which wouldn't only hold the Apple Pencil, but also charge it. So what if you don't have or want the new Magic Keyboard and you just want to use the iPad Pro as a handheld tablet? Well, in that case, it seems likely to me that Apple will make it MagSafe compatible so that it can charge on the back of the iPad, much like we've seen on some of the more recent Samsung tablets. Other changes we've talked about before are a higher viewing mode with different angles and a clipboard mode, which would be very cool, especially if you're an artist and you don't want to take your iPad out of the keyboard every single time you want to do some illustrations. Speaking of artists, a rumored Apple Pencil Gen 3 is also said to have magnetically interchangeable tips to help make writing and drawing a lot easier. Now, this has been a wish list item for me personally for a long time. I hate writing directly on the glass because the current tip is quite hard and that makes it super slippery to write on the glass surface. So I end up using paper-like screen protectors to make that a bit easier. Actually having interchangeable nibs could be a real game changer. It is also said to come with Find My support, so we can finally use our iPhones to look for the Apple Pencil, which, let's be honest, it's pretty easy to lose. Between the new charging slot for the Apple Pencil and the addition of a Find My feature, it will become a lot harder to lose your Apple Pencil, and that's a good thing because the rumored new price is $150, and losing a stylus that expensive is painful. Oh, and the Pencil could be getting support for the Vision Pro, but with everybody seemingly returning their Vision Pros, I'm not sure how much use that's gonna get. Lastly, almost needless to say, is that the new iPad Pro will be getting the latest M3 chip, which is nice as it brings things like ray tracing to the iPad, which has the potential to turn this thing into a handheld gaming beast. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it one of these. It really does help the channel. Subscribe for more content. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.